guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything is okay in your life. This video series has been prepared for general features of the classes in BDO to be conveyed to you by the Classmasters in appropriate way. The information contained in this video is limited and will not be a detailed guide. In the content you will meet, there will be an interview about the structure of the class in general. If you have friends around you who have questions about this class, they will probably be able to find general answers. The purpose of interview is to convey the class to you in a short and fun way. First, you will watch official trailer of the class, then we will start chatting with our guests. During the chat, I will add as many images as possible and try to provide you with a better information transfer. I hope you enjoy these contents. All these and similar classes will be completed and published in time. If you do not want to miss the moment when they are published, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button. Enjoy watching. Well, hello. I hope everything is okay, guys. Today's guest is ZerodenHunter for Warrior class. Hello, Zeroden. How are you?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. May you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Absolutely. My name is Zeroden. I'm a BDO content creator. I'm mostly a PvP streamer, and I also do VTubing. And occasionally, sometimes I'll do things like grinding and life scaling, but mostly my stream is focused around PvP. Majority of how I spend my time in game.
I think people know you from Pistanti videos.
True. I do end up on there quite a bit. Mostly because I think people just share the videos because they're interesting or they're featured in it. And
how did you find BDO game? From a friend or website? How are you into MMORPG games? How did you decide to play?
A longtime guildmate and good friend of mine showed me BDO around the time that I was leaving Terra. The game was still very early in development, but she was closely following the development. And when the closed beta test came around, she encouraged me to try it with her. I love the action combat of Terra, and I think at the time when the closed beta test came out, I was playing World of Warcraft, and I was really looking forward to getting away from the tab target type of game. So I decided to try it. I found several of my guildmates had already also picked it up, and we just continued playing it together.
I know you have different type of guild in this game. So what is the goal of this guild?
So the Kinsworn Hunters are, our guild is actually over 25 years old as of this year. We've been together for a very long time, and we are adding new members all the time. The goal of the guild is we are like looking for people who are looking for a home, don't want to keep jumping from guild to guild. We go from game to game together. We want to invest in people as human beings and not in, just, oh, you're a warrior, cool, come play with us. Oh, you're a caster or a healer, come play with us. That's not how we recruit. It's not how we find people. We want to basically find friends that we can treat as family. So the guild's name, Kinsworn Hunters, right? Kin being family, sworn being sworn in, and the family name is Hunter. So like I'm ZerodenHunter, my membership would be like Precision Hunter or Casphere Hunter. That's because we're part of the same family that we have chosen for ourselves. And that's kind of how we represent ourselves everywhere we go.
How many years have you been playing your class, Warrior? Is this your first class? Are there any other classes that you started the game with or tried?
I made a Warrior during the first closed beta test of BDO. So I've been playing Warrior for about 6.5 years. This is my first class, and it is my only class. I have over a dozen warriors. I have made some alts during leveling up events, like for other classes, but I've never seriously played them. If you look at my character sheet, it is almost entirely warriors.
Do you think your class is newbie friendly? How would you rate your class out of 10 in terms of difficulty in PvE and also PvP?
I think the succession build of Warrior is very new player friendly. It has decent AP scaling, a good amount of frontal guard defense for grinding in a variety of areas, and low actions per minute. I'd say in PvE, Warrior in both Succession and Awakening performs about the same, and is roughly what I'd say is a high B tier grinder. In PvP, the skill gap of the class is immense. A skilled Warrior, like other high skill gap classes such as a Sork or a DK, can make the class seem broken. A bad Warrior will make them seem awful. In small 1 versus 1 fighting, I'd say Warrior is probably one of the top 5 classes. In small scale 3v3 or 5v5, he starts to drop off. And in large scale fights and platoon size groups, Warrior almost completely drops off and can be pretty abysmal.
What do you think about these stars for Warrior? Are they accurate?
I'd say they're correct, but there is some caveats to note. So the mobility of a Warrior is very high, but something that has to be noted is that in Succession, the mobility is lower. I'd say it's probably around a 3.5 to 4 stars. And in Awake, well, you actually have 4 stars, but I'd say it's about 3.5 stars because the forward mobility for Succession on Warrior is great, but their sideways mobility is really poor, really poor. In Awakening, it is 5 stars, I agree. However, it is unprotected movement. So a lot of people will think 5-star movement, that's great, but not realize that a lot of Warrior movement does not have protections. So it's important to note.
But this for only PvE, so unprotected movements is not that important for PvE.
In that case, then yes, this is a good list. I think honestly, the early game ground spots, yeah, that looks good to me. Everything looks right. So
because most of players watched my PvE tier list and they're asking about these kind of situations, and I'm telling them, hey, I prepared them according to my experience, and also I'm asking to one of the best experienced players, my friend or something, whoever I know from different servers, and they're not believing me. And then I have to ask to you again because you are our guests and you said they're accurate for PvE. It's okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So in these days, which one do you prefer, Awakening or Succession, and why?
I always have preferred the Awakening build of the Warrior. Actually, when I rolled the class originally as a Warrior, we had information from Korea servers that Warrior's eventually going to get a great sword. And I loved the great sword aesthetic. So when I was choosing my classes when BDO launched, I picked the Warrior anticipating the great sword coming out. When Awakening first came out, it was one of those situations where I felt like I was on ice skates because it was very choppy movement until I learned how to flow abilities together. So I feel like Awakening Warrior, in my opinion, is the superior build, but that's for me. It's not necessarily for everybody. Succession Warrior can be very good, especially for a player that's newer. But I think as more Warriors become more experienced with the game, they always prefer the Awaken build just because the lateral movement is far superior to the Succession build of the class. Succession can do a lot of damage, don't get it wrong, but I think the Awakening Warrior build overall is the higher utilitarian and higher, more fun, I should say, build of the class.
Before the reworks on Warrior, you need at least 100-120 FPS to make it better, reach the potential of the class. Is this still the same? Did they fix the situation?
No, it is definitely still the same. I think Succession Warrior is a little more forgiving than Awaken Warrior, but if you're going to play Awaken Warrior, you do need high FPS, and that's because of the way that the game handles damage output and input and movement abilities.
May you please give us a bit information about Awakening PvE? Let's start from early game spot.
Sure. The low and mid-tier grinding are a bit difficult for me to relate to because I am so very disconnected from the new player experience. However, for lower end grind spots, Centaurs and Sulfur Mines are great silver per hour, with Sulfur Mines giving you the additional potential of getting your Archaeologist map as a lottery ticket item. The mid-tier grinding, I would say I would recommend Elvia Swamp Vogons, as they offer really good blue shards per hour, roughly between 15 and 20. And Castle Ruins, you have a group because the shards per hour are also between 15 and 20. This will help you cup your accessories as you continue to move forward with your gains. Star's End is another really good spot if you want just pure silver per hour, but I prefer running the routes over doing the towers. I find I earn more trash per hour grinding the route, and it's easier as a warrior to run around in a circle than to sit and defend one spot. As for the upper area grind spots, or upper grind areas. Gyfe and Razia is great for a Warrior Awake, especially if you're running PvE add-ons with Frenzy Strikes as a core skill. It gives you a long forward guard, which makes grinding at Gyfen very comfortable for avoiding big attacks from elite monsters. It also offers the most solo Kavris available and the most XP you can get alone. I really like Trolls too because it's similar to Gyfen in that it's easy to get behind the big enemies, deal damage, use frontal guards to avoid their big attacks. Each troll killed is a chance at a valuable item, and I like that feeling because it makes you a little excited to kill each pack. I'm less of a fan of Hex, as the mobs can come at you from all directions, which invalidates a lot of those slow-moving frontal guards. This is a better grind zone for a class with a lot of super armors rather than frontal guard.
Thank you. These are very valuable information for newbies or whoever want to reroll these packs. So, the most important subject of today, PvP. May you please give us a bit information about Awakening PvP? 1v1, 1vx, 3 vs 3, I mean Arena of Solar, 5 vs 5, and large scale like Node Wars, Siege Wars, and etc.
Yeah, in 1v1 PvP, the Warrior is a very methodical player. He does well by anticipating his enemy's moves and positioning himself in order to protect himself from incoming damage or CC through forward guard effects, or in order to counter CC or grapple, or to super armor trade his enemy in front of or in an effort to outdamage him. He will also use spears to pressure CC for the more comfortable range players that he's fighting against while he gap closes for that grapple. In a 1vx situation, Warrior doesn't have much in the way of super armor movement or super armor CC, so he relies heavily on either forward guarded or unprotected movement. Super armor attacks for damage trading and probing for CCs through openings and slows through forward guard to CC unprotected or throw unprotected range spears in order to land that CC. Since a lot of the movement is unprotected, positioning is very key in these situations. Grappling can be very dangerous because it's going to put you in position for a while in order to get counter CC'd. In 5v5, Warrior starts to drop off. He plays the role of a bruiser, which means he damages enemies in order to get them low for his assassins on his team to come in and take the kill. Or he'll land CC effects for his team to capitalize on, which means that the Warrior is likely to get counter CC'd, so his team needs to be right on top of him when he pushes. In Node War, Warrior is an abysmal ball fighter, so you're best left to participate in a flex team-like activities where you're running around thinning the enemy numbers on the outskirts of their ball, or chasing down key players, or chasing after objectives like cannons or flags. In Arena of Solar, the Warrior excels in crowd control mechanics, so he's going to be basically your crowd control teammate, but again, it's this very similar situation to the 5v5. He is very likely to get counter CC'd, so his team needs to be on top of him and with the Warrior to deal that damage, because the Warrior doesn't have the high burst potential of, say, something like a Musa or something like a Dark Knight might.
So let's talk about Succession. What about Succession PvE?
The bottom line up front is Succession excels in low APM grinding or abilities per actions per minute grinding. It has good AP scaling and frontal guard defense work.
Thank you. So what about Succession PvP?
Succession PvP does well in forward guard and forward movement, but suffers in lateral movement and positioning, making it widely regarded as the inferior build in PvP content. Dedicated Succession warriors can still experience small-scale PvP success, and Succession does slightly better in large-scale PvP than Awakening Warrior due to its strong defensive shield and group buffing utility.
What do you think about BDO's current situation?
I really like the direction that the game is going. They have focused on quality of life improvements and continue to revisit areas of the game that need a little more love while still continuing to work on new content. I do feel like some changes are a little bit slow or long overdue, but they eventually do get worked on. The game has transformed immensely over the past couple of years and is more new player friendly than ever. Seasonal characters and other opportunities make it constantly viable for someone to catch up to the meta, and the highest gear players continue to sit where they are while everyone else proceeds to catch up. The game still has a ton to offer, with several uncovered areas of the games on the map yet to be released. If BDO could change one thing to make the current state of the game better for everyone, it would be to solve the problem that is desync. I don't think this issue gets enough attention from PA, as they offload a lot of the tasks of BDO onto the client side instead of the server side, which is why we see the desync that we constantly do.
Hopefully they will fix this situation, but I can only say hopefully. I know you have insane ideas about the game. If you have a chance to add new feature, video, or change something, what would it be?
So I have lots of ideas, but I'm going to try and limit myself to like 4 or 5 here. I think for the tier 10 Doom horse, I would love to see a lightning horse instead of a fire horse come into play. When we saw our Dine, right, we had a desert horse that now became a water walking horse. And now with the new change to the Pegasus, the tier 10 Pegasus, you have what was like a wind aesthetic now becoming an ice aesthetic. So that's a lot of blue. And they were talking about making the Doom horse blue flame horse. So I think it's kind of lame. We already have a flame horse. So I think what would have been cool is if they made the tier 10 Doom horse a lightning horse, and that third instant excel, instead of making it like a burst of fire and moving forward, it works kind of like a sage movement where it's a teleport jaunt forward. And instead of having the fiery forechop where it just explodes in front of the horse when he does the Doom steps, it'd be like a thunderclap where a blast of thunder comes from the sky and just it hits that area. It would be statistically the same effect, but it would just look cool. I also think a weekly quest for one horse skill reroll token is definitely called for. Horse training remains one of the most pay to win life skills in this game, and I think at least adding one horse reroll token per week would very much help balance that for the free to play player, or just make it more accessible to everybody overall, because I think horse training is good content. Another feature I think that really is overdue in BDO is party auto convert to platoon for when more than 5 people are invited. So let's say you have a situation where you have 5 people in your party and then a 6th person is trying to join because you were grinding at Mirror Malix and now all of a sudden PvP is popping off. Or you've just switched servers, you were in a platoon and now more people are trying to join your platoon. What should happen is a prompt should appear for the party leader that says, would you like to convert your party into a platoon? And then you'd hit yes, and then the party would automatically become a platoon, keeping all the members in the party and then adding people who wanted to join through the platoon. And then also shrinking down the party or shrinking down the platoon back into a party when the party becomes smaller than 6. But instead of it being a pop-up, let's say you had a platoon of 20 people and now everyone went to bed and there's only 4 of you left. Well, the party leader, via the party leader menu where you click on the party leader's name, should have an option there that instead of saying just leave or ban or invite or whatever, it should also add an option for convert to party. So that way you could take your platoon back to a party when there's less than 6 people in the party or in the platoon. Another option that they should add is previewing die channels in the Pearl Shop. This is a very simple thing they can do. It would just be another additional menu in the Pearl Shop, but it will allow people to see what a costume's die channels would look like in the Pearl Shop, which I think is something that we're all very interested in when you're trying to buy a costume. Lastly, and not leastly, is having the platoon leader get a unique icon over his head as an option that can be turned on or off, and being able to set icons for at least 2 other members in the party. So let's say you're doing Node War and you are your platoon leader and you're trying to lead your people to a certain spot. If the platoon leader has an icon that the platoon leader can put over his head, it makes it a lot easier for people to follow him, and then he can also indicate where his cannoneer members are, etc., etc. But I don't want this idea to be limited strictly to Node War content, because it's useful in all kinds of content. It's useful when you are in a group for whaling. It's useful when you are in a group in a PvP group, or rather GVG, I should say. It's useful in all kinds of scenarios to be able to mark your party leader, and for the party leader to be able to mark.
Okay, those are amazing and insane features. I hope they will add them in the game. So what are your advices for newbie or returnee or whoever wants reroll warrior?
I would say for a new player, don't worry so heavily about the efficiency of a class. The most important factor in every form of content in BDO is how a specific class, spec, or activity feels for you. It doesn't matter how efficient something is for you if you find the activity insufferable. The thing that will continue to motivate you and keep you coming back when the game gets boring or the grind is long is enjoying how the game feels. So pick up the class you love, no matter how efficient it is, and remember that there's more than one way to earn silver or make gains in BDO. Do it the way you enjoy. A consistent pace is the best pace. BDO on its own will pour silver into your bank, so don't keep trying to rush to the finish line, because you will experience diminishing returns in your time for investment. BDO is a marathon, not a sprint. If you treat it like a sprint, you will burn out.
So we're coming towards the end of the interview, and is there anything you would like to add for our interview?
BDO is one of the most unique MMOs out there, and presently there is no game that competes with it for this type of content that it provides. I treat this game like an adventure, and the reason I chose to start streaming was to allow other people to join me on my adventures by seeing the game through my eyes. I want you to experience my journey with me and be reminded that BDO is not all about mindlessly grinding in circles. It can be a wild ride with an unpredictable path as long as you allow it.
There is something I want to add. Please guys, you should definitely check ZerodenHunter's Twitch channel and YouTube channel. You will not regret, trust me. I want to say thank you to ZerodenHunter.
No, it was absolutely my pleasure, and thank you for having me along.
Thank you so much. Alright guys, do not forget, BDO is just a game. Have a nice game.